Welcome to Moving People Forward with Mark Elfstrand. This program is a series of conversations on commonly seen challenges in everyday people's lives. We hope you'll be inspired by the stories you hear today. Perhaps you know of someone who would also benefit. Be sure to share the program link with a friend. Now, here's Mark.
Well, no doubt you have heard of Wonder Woman. Well, sometimes they actually appear in real life. Today, you're going to hear from a woman who has been, a successful educator, entrepreneur, church and community leader, an author, and actually was such a good mom that in the year 2001, she was selected as the Illinois Mother of the Year. 4 words that are often used to describe this uniquely gifted woman are whimsical, witty, wise, and, I know you're waiting for another W, intentional. Okay, well, she's not exactly by herself in this world. She's got a great husband who has helped make her what she is today, and he, in his own way, has helped help people fly high. With me today on Moving People Forward are my friends Kendra and John Smiley, a lovable and extraordinary couple. And with that, Kendra and John, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
It is. Thanks, Mark.
You bet. Okay, well, first off, who caught who in the what we might call the web of the love affair?
Well, you want to tell where we met?
We met at a public swimming pool, and my brother was teaching life-saving, and he needed a helper because they were doing the testing for life-saving, and I happened to work on the railroad. I worked 4 days a week. I had Friday off, and he said, John, and I had my life-saving and was a good swimmer. And he said, would you come over and help me do the testing? I said, yeah, I'd be glad to. So I went over to the public pool, and Kendra happened to be one of his students. Right. And Kendra says,
well, you see, I saw how cute he was. So I decided I wanted to get in his line first to rescue him.
I see.
And then I noticed all the rest of the girls did too. So I got right up there in front of the line. And this is a true story. I went home after that. And by the way, I did get him in a cross-chest carry, and I did a really, really good job.
I can tell.
We came home, and my best girlfriend lived next door, and I said, Jane, I think I just met the man I'm going to marry. That was not prophecy. That was wishful thinking.
I see.
And 4 years later?
Yeah, that afternoon, Kendra asked me, she said, what are you going to do this afternoon, John? And I said, well, I'm going to move a couple horses from my dad's farm, from our farm to my grandpa's farm. And she said, well, I like to ride horses. And so that began, that was our first date on horseback. Yeah. And then 4 years later, we got married.
Away we go. Huh? Yeah. Well, Kendra and I first met about, I guess it was 20 years ago.
Probably.
And you had a book that came out about a strong-willed child. And I just happened to have a copy of it right here. And it says, The Journey of a Strong-Willed Child. One can only assume that you've had one of those.
Oh, yes. And really, I would have flunked. I could have never written that book because I would have been like in therapy or something.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of tricky to raise a strong-willed child. But I married a formerly strong-willed child,
okay.
Turned responsible adult.
And you were training him?
Oh, no. I was saying, what do we do now? And he said, it's going to be fine. And you have to be in charge when you have a strong-willed child. And I'm the baby of my family. By a lot of years. I was everybody's baby. My siblings considered me their baby too.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I had no training. In fact, my dad was really big on everybody needs to have a job when we're growing up. And so I babysat one time, and I came home and I said, there's got to be an easier way to make money. And so I detasseled corn. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That would be.
This is the man who knows
option.
About strong-willed children.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so as a parent, though, that is trying to raise a child like this, did you understand your son, Aaron, better perhaps than another parent might?
I did. And I think that was an added benefit to our parenting together because I did understand what he was doing and what he was thinking. And one of the interesting things about strong-willed kids is they have just an unbelievable amount of confidence. And they do. It's God-given. It's just absolutely something that they're born with the confidence they have. And so as a parent, if you don't have confidence in your parenting, you're already behind the 8 ball before anything ever starts. And Kendra and I did some research on it when we were writing the book and after, and asked parents when they thought they could recognize the strong-willed tendencies in their children. And it was amazing how many different parents, how many people we asked. And the consensus was 18 months.
Yeah.
When a child is 18 months old, that's when they start saying, I can be a better parent than you can. Watch me, and I'm going to tell you why you're not doing a very good job at this. And anyway, and obviously doing not that verbal, but actions of either the parent trying to get them to do something, they're not going to do it. And so 18 months old. And so if a parent doesn't have confidence, it is very, very difficult.
Okay, so both of you like horses, apparently, or are familiar.
I did that day.
Okay, and then in the horse's mouth, what do we
Bit.
put there? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
To try to add some control to this. Do you do that with a strong-willed child at all?
I think you do, yes, in one sense. But the older I've got, and I've learned some things since I've raised Aaron and my own self, and that is, I think there has to be a lot of communication. You can put a bit, if you using that analogy, in a strong-willed child's mouth, and that works. But I think a bit, along with a great deal of observation, communication, and helping that strong-willed child understand why that bit is there and what you're doing. And that's one of the mistakes that I made. I didn't do enough explaining. I put the bit in his mouth and I said, this is what's going to happen.
Expediency.
And this is what's going to happen. And that worked, but I would have done a better job if we would have more explained things that were going on and asked his input.
Aaron and I were speaking one time at a conference. He was obviously an adult, and we must have been speaking about the strong-willed child. And here's the formerly strong-willed child standing up and talking with his mom.
Right.
And somebody raised their hand. Question. Now, as an adult, do you resent your father? Because he was obviously the disciplinarian. And he goes, no, my father made me into the man I am today. Makes a mom cry.
Yeah. And today, by the way, is he a dentist?
No, that's our baby's a dentist.
That's your baby. Okay.
No, we have 3 sons. He is a veterinarian.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And mother moment, that's morning. He is the president of the Indiana Veterinary Medicine Association. Loves every minute of it. He's in charge.
Yeah.
What you're trying to do with strong-willed kids, with not only with strong-willed kids, with all your kids, and that's help them sing their song.
Amen.
And that's so, so important. And the song that was inside Aaron was to be a veterinarian, and Kendra and I's job was just to help him get there.
Yeah, well, that's a wonderful story. And by the way, his version of all this is available in a book as well, is it not? Didn't he write one?
He wrote with us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was one of the co-authors.
Okay.
When you read that book, you read the perspective from mom, dad, and the
Aaron.
strong-willed child.
Okay. We only have a short amount of time here before the break, but I want you to touch on this because in 2001, you were selected as the Illinois Mother of the Year.
Yes.
I'm just kind of curious what, and this is a book, actually, it's 365 Days of Encouragement for devoted moms. So in case anybody's interested in that. But just again, quickly, what was the criteria for that?
What I say at a speaking engagement, if they introduce me that way and go through that, and I say, after you get to know me, you will know you too can be the Mother of the Year from your state. It is kind of, I don't know the criteria. Here's what I think. I think I was nominated by more than one person, by more than one church.
Okay.
And it was a great honor. And again, probably my favorite part of it was all 3 of my boys were there. It was, one was still at home. He wasn't in high school yet. And they all paid a little tribute. And that was the best part.
Yeah. Well, I still admire you for it because, anybody who can rise above the crowd.
I have a sash.
As a mom, and you probably still wear it around the house.
No, but I have it on display.
Well, we're going to take a short break and then continue our discussion with Kendra and John Smiley as they offer wisdom on parenting, marriage, and even dealing with heart clutter. And we'll talk more about that when we continue in just a moment.
God is our safe place and our strength. He is always our help when we are in trouble. This word of God in Psalm 46:1 says it all. God is our safe place. He is our strength. He is our help when we are in trouble. Whenever and wherever we are invited, nationally or internationally, Lutheran Church Charity's mission is to bring the mercy, compassion, presence, and proclamation of Jesus Christ to those who are suffering and in need. LCC is a ministry of presence, to be present with Jesus, to lift up people in times of joy and sorrow, in prayer, and by passing through donations of dollar per dollar to those in need. Through our canine ministries, we respond and deploy with boots on the ground and paws within 24 hours, often sooner, of any crisis or disaster situation we're invited into. Our LCC disaster response teams continue our support, both financially and with our dedicated volunteers, for those communities during their long-term recovery and efforts, which can be years. Disaster response teams also train volunteers through our alert training to equip volunteers to respond to the various types of disasters. LCC's human care ministries work through our churches and pastors to provide financial and in-kind donations, people resources, and emotional and spiritual care. We have strong partnerships with churches and Christian ministries across the U.S. and internationally. You see, for us, the bottom line is making a difference by being present for people who are suffering and in need with that mercy, compassion, presence of Jesus Christ. Thank you again for allowing us the privilege to stand alongside and serve others. Jesus and your partnership make that possible to touch thousands of lives.
This is Moving People Forward. I'm Mark Elfstrand, and we're discussing, well, what it takes to be a great parent and maybe even a great grandparent. My guests are Kendra and John Smiley. John was a career military man, and Kendra kept the world safe from just about everything that John couldn't. She truly is a wonder woman. So how long have you now been married?
We have been married 48
Almost,
years, almost in June. 48 years, which is hysterical. And what's the secret to that success? At one point, we were having a disagreement about something, and our middle son looked at John and said, "It's time you realize Mom is the best thing that ever happened to you." So I announced, "You're now my favorite son for the day."
Right.
And then I realized that that was true and that he feels that same way. I feel that way about him, and he feels that way about me. And I'll tell you, Mark, if I could figure out exact formula for that, I'd let you in on it, and we'd all retire.
All right, but you had what, 3 boys?
We have 3 sons.
You have 3 sons, and how many grandchildren now?
We have 11.
Yeah, okay. So if you're going to give advice to people about how to be a good dad, how to be a good family man or a family woman, I guess, how about this? Do your kids a favor and love your spouse. Do your kids a favor and love your spouse, by Kendra and John Smiley. So what's the secret here we need to know?
Well, if I could do a visual, which I can't here in the studio, but I call probably the best thing to keep in mind is painting your priorities. What does that look like? Well, first of all, you have to put the board where you're going to paint the paper in an upright position. And some people are thinking, you can't paint on something that's upright like this. Oh, I want it to be like this. And then what are the important things in your life? I don't want you to just put a slip on your desk. I want you to paint it. And so in my life, Jesus comes first. And then comes John. And then comes the boys. And then comes my work. And then comes other good things. All painted with different colors. But it's in an upright position. And you're using watercolors, Kendra. That's great. Oh, yeah, on purpose. In fact, if they're not running down fast enough, I'll squirt them with water. Because I want every decision made about the last thing on the list, the other good things. That's like vacation Bible school leader or baking cookies or whatever. I want everything to be influenced by the things that are above it on the list. So in other words, Jesus Christ influences, hopefully in a good day, every decision about John, about the boys, and now their wives and their children, and about my work and about other good things.
All right. So, John, you're trying to give some input on how to be a good husband and how to get the relationship right in the marriage. What's your counsel?
Well, I think that from the parenting perspective, it's so very important with loving your spouse because of the modeling thing, and all your kids are watching what you're doing. And so as Kendra and I, as we model, what do we model? We model everything. We model how we interact. We model our faith. That's one of the questions that we got asked a lot when we were doing seminars, and that was, how do you transfer your faith? And that was a great question. And I realized that the best way to do that is to model the real thing. Don't be artificial, and your kids are watching you. And so in this thing of do your kids a favor, love your spouse, there are so many things that you're teaching, showing your kids just by loving your spouse, because we know that Jesus said the relationship that we have, the marriage is the example for that. And so they're watching, and that communicates and teaches them so many wonderful things if we're doing it if our relationship is the way Jesus wants it.
So you were career military.
I was.
Does that mean that you were away from home a good part of your marriage?
Well, that's interesting because I was on active duty for 4 years and I was away. We didn't have kids then. And that's one of the decisions that I made, realizing that on active duty, I was gone so much that I wouldn't be able to be a good dad. I wouldn't be able to be a good husband. And so I was in the reserves a good part of that career, which helped a lot. I did some other things, obviously, besides flying for the military, but I was away. And again, that's where Kendra and I, it came in that we were working together. Parenting should be a team sport.
Right.
And if it's a team sport, you're helping each other. You're not trying to one up. You're not trying to isolate each other. You're working together. And so that's where, when I was away, Kendra obviously was in charge. When I was back with the family, we worked together, and that's just the way we work things out. But it worked well.
Okay. Now, Kendra, you also do blogging. Is that correct?
Blogging. What is that?
With a blog. You write your blog, huh?
A blog.
Do you ever do that?
I think I hired somebody to do that.
She has somebody do that for her.
Oh, yeah. I see. Because you have one that says no logic necessary, and I thought that might have been a blog to help John understand you.
No, but that would have worked. Yeah,
would have worked.
Yeah.
I think she just tells me that, when she comes up with these, some of the things she just says, hey,
Well,
I don't have to make sense.
I say bad tone and bad delivery, honey. Try again.
That's the biggest thing, Mark,
Being
for me.
honest with one another.
I struggle with my tone and delivery a lot. So,
all right. Well, let's look at another book. Be the Parent: 7 Choices You Can Make to Raise Great Kids. See, you'd have to have the whole Smiley library for your life to be complete. Be the Parent: 7 Choices You Can Make to Raise Great Kids. Again, we're just going to have to be quick in time here. But what do we learn from this book?
You learn that don't just pretend like you're the parent.
Amen.
I would say, well, of course I'm the parent. I'm bigger. I'm stronger. I'm
smarter.
No. And, and I honestly, when the kids were young, when they seemed to be getting the upper hand, I would look up and say, no, you are the child. I am the parent. And I literally would say that out loud. And who was I trying to convince? Both of us.
I see.
Both of us, absolutely.
What a little reality check.
Yeah, and one of the things that we see in the Bible is God never intended for kids to be the parent.
No.
And that's one of the things that's getting confused today. All of a sudden we say the parents are letting the kids be the parent. And then the Bible never said that.
No.
It always said parents be the parent.
Right.
And then that comes responsibility with that kids cannot handle. And so there we get all mixed up. As soon as parents abdicate the throne and let the kids start being the parent, we run into trouble.
Right.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next one. Heart Clutter, Sifting Through the Contents of My Heart, Mind, and Memory. Does everybody kind of struggle with heart clutter at one point or another?
Oh, I think so. I think that if you take some time and look at what is inside of you, you'll find you have things in there that you should throw away. And first thing that comes to my mind is unforgiveness. And there's a quote in there. It's not an original. Probably somebody at Moody found it for me. But it was, unforgiveness does more damage to the vessel in which it is stored than to the object on which it is poured.
Right.
And just thinking that. So throw things like that away. And then you have things inside of you that you could give away. And encouragement is the best one. I still remember must have been on the tri-state, and I didn't have my little thing so you don't have to stop or whatever, you had to pay toll. So I got up to the toll booth, and the lady at the toll booth spoke. And they never talk to you, they
want your money.
Yeah, well, I know. And I handed it to her, and she started talking, and she said, "Did you see that man in front of you?" Now, let me tell you, I saw the person, because if I hadn't, we would have had a rear end, right? And I started talking. She goes, "Well, he wanted a receipt, and he didn't have the graciousness to ask for it. He just went like this." And so I'm sitting there while she's making my change. I'm thinking, how can I encourage this woman? Is there anything I can say to this toll booth woman to encourage her?
So you said, "Give me my dang receipt."
No, I didn't. I put my hand out and I said, "What would his mama say?" And she laughed her head off, and she was encouraged. And interestingly enough, so was I. So giving that away, those are wonderful things to give away.
Okay, we're virtually out of time here, but what's next on the journey for the Smileys?
Wow.
Well, we're definitely into grandparenting right now.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different ball game than parenting. We're learning as we go,
Yes.
hopefully doing a decent job, but that takes a lot of our time.
We have 11 of them, and 9 of them are girls. And one day, the daddy of one of the boys called, and we're talking, and then he said, "Oh, Caleb wants to talk." I said, "Oh, hi, Caleb. Where's Grandpa?"
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So I'm chopped liver, but not 9% of the time.
But I guess that must have been kind of to offset, with 9 girls for grandkids versus girls versus the 3 sons.
Oh, it's
you need a
very
little
different.
balance to kind of help
Oh,
you.
boy.
Very different.
Oh boy! Don't ever let anybody tell you boys and girls are the same.
And
oh,
they
boy.
are those are 11 kids in 10 years.
All right.
So,
So how do people find out about all the books we just talked about? You have a website?
yes, KendraSmiley.com. They can go there, and I'd love to have them come. And
you do speaking
we
together
do.
still?
Yeah, we've been
But you
practicing
can-
just now,
Yeah,
just
you
to
can,
get warmed up.
You can find out
We're
more
warming
about
up.
all the speaking things that
Yes.
Kendra and John do by going to the same website. Huh?
Yes.
Give it one more time, if you would.
KendraSmiley.com.
All right. Good to see you both.
Yeah, good
Great
to see you, Mark. Thank
Mark.
you.
Thanks for leaving the farm to come to visit the city again and
Yes,
hang out with us.
we're heading home after
All
this.
right, very good. Well, that's our program for today. As the sages have told us, grow in wisdom, think humbly of yourself, and love one another. May it be so with you. Join me next time for more of Moving People Forward. I'm Mark Elfstrand.